Hi, my name is Tracey Sparrowhawk, and I am the candidate for the People's Party of Canada in the Regina-Qu'Appelle riding in Regina, Saskatchewan. Thank you for hopping on my channel. If this is the first time that you've seen my videos, please consider subscribing. I post new videos as topics come up that I want to share with you and keep you informed of things that are going on with this election campaign, which is getting closer by the day. The election is October 21st, 2019. So make sure that you check out all the party platforms of all the current political parties and vote the one that seems the best for you, that represents what you value and how you want Canada to be going forward. Because since 2015, Canada has been not doing very well under the leadership of Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party. So it is time for change, and the way we do that is at the ballot box. So I encourage everyone that is eligible to vote to get out and vote. Do your duty as a Canadian citizen in a democracy, because that is the only way to make your voice heard. So with that little soapbox rant, I will carry on. I just wanted to ask a quick question. And what do you think of freedom of speech in Canada these days? Since Justin Trudeau took office in 2015, how do you think freedom of speech is going in Canada? Do you think that you're more free to express opinions or your ideas? Do you feel that that the media is accurately representing what's going on in the world today and in Canada with all the issues that we have? If not, I think you're not alone, because there are many people, including myself, who can see through the lies of the media, and we know that we're not getting the full story. It's really hard to understand why this is happening, because we are supposed to have freedom of expression and freedom of speech. Our media is supposed to be, the idea is that the media is supposed to be non-biased and just present the facts and let the people decide. And in Canada, freedom of speech and freedom to express your opinion is an essential feature of a democracy. We need the freedom to express ourselves and to form our own opinions. And the right to dissent is a feature of a democratic society. Not everybody is going to agree on the same thing, and that should be okay. We need to get over this idea that everyone needs to think the same way in order for, things to be considered valid. We need to be able to put our ideas out there, and if it's a bad idea, and people tell us it's a bad idea, then you either change your idea or you hold on to your bad idea and get called out for it. And that is okay. That's what we need to do. How are we supposed to grow as people if we don't get exposure to different ideas that are around us? Now, in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Section 2B, I'm just going to read here for a minute. It protects freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication. So most people today communicate on social media, or they may not read an actual newspaper or watch TV anymore. They're getting more information online through Facebook, through Twitter, through YouTube, all these different search engines that are available to us to be able to find information quickly. We live in an information age where you can get information on practically anything you want at any time you want. It's an unprecedented time in history, and we are very privileged to be around in this time. But every day we see that more and more of our freedoms are being restricted. They're being restricted through the criminal code and human rights provisions that limit hate speech. They're being restricted by municipal bylaws that regulate the signage or where protests can take place. So it's not only the media and some of like the federal government maybe that's restricting our freedom of speech. It goes down to the municipal level, to your town, local town and city government that is restricting where we can express ourselves through peaceful protests or demonstrations or whatever. Um, Civil defamation actions, which are like libel actions, and restrictions are placed on the press because we have seen that our press is becoming more opinionated than just producing facts. And they may not even present all the facts appropriately or truthfully. So there's restrictions placed on their freedom to express themselves, especially through the government, which can and does restrict access to the internet. It filters content through policies, through private companies. So we've seen this happening. Lots of conservative websites, especially in the US, and now it's happening in Canada. Conservative thoughts and opinions and websites are being shut down or restricted, and people aren't able to find information on things that they're looking for. They're not able to find valid, truthful, accurate information on what they're looking for. And when you have big search engines like Google and YouTube and Facebook going to bat for the more leftist and liberal, progressive side of the spectrum of ideas, we can see that they're not giving fair space to opposite ideas. And when they do, we just get called names like racist or bigot or homophobe or Islamophobe or whatever. Speech is very important. Words do matter. And people who are on the left seem to think that their words matter more than anyone else's words, and they try to shut us up. Now, freedom of expression is not only the right to speak, but it's the right to hear. We have a right to hear and be exposed to different ideas, as I've said earlier. And when the government bureaucrats and friends of the government are allowed to decide which opinions can be expressed and which cannot, our open, diverse society breaks down very quickly. And we're seeing this happen in Canada. It really scares me to know that our media is not representing. Our media is supposed to be going after the government, into holding the government to account for the things they're doing. But they're propping up the government. They're in league with the government. In Canada, if you're watching this from outside of Canada, we have a state-funded broadcast station called the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and they basically are a puppet of the government, and they get funded by the government, so they are supportive of the government. But the funny thing is, they're only supportive of one side of the government. They're not so supportive when the conservative government gets in power, even though their salaries are being paid by the government. Whichever government is in power, they're still more beholden to the more progressive side. Now, something that really struck me is that, and the reason that I'm making this video is that I watched a couple videos from Rebel Media. And if you're not in Canada, Rebel Media is a Canadian news outlet. Actually, they do have some international reporters as well. They do cover some international events, but their main focus is in Canada. They're an independent news organization, and they're solely online. They don't have any TV presence. They don't have any print, but they're online. They have a YouTube channel as well as a subscription-based service where if you pay a fee, you can get more content if you really want to find out more information. So that's all fine and good. It's publicly funded. They report, they do a pretty objective job of reporting good and bad in what's going on with the government and with all the political leaders. They're, they don't have any bias. It's hard to, if you watch them, you can tell that there's no bias. They just report and they take the facts where they go. They don't, they're very professional. And they do a lot of stories that the mainstream media refuse to cover. They ask the questions that the mainstream media refuse to cover. And because of that, they've been blacklisted by our government. Our prime minister has referred to them as conspiracy theorists in the in the House of Parliament. So, or the House of Commons in Parliament. So this is very troubling that the government, the sitting government, would choose to single out a news organization as a conspiracy theorist just because this news organization does not report the way the government wants them to. They're recently, within the last year or so, our federal government has decided to give a $600 million tax credit to the press in Canada here. Excuse me. So this is in addition to all the money that they're paying to our state broadcaster, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. They're also giving $600 million, a $600 million payout to struggling news outlets that they deem worthy of this money. And so this is a government again engaging in corporate welfare. These are all private newspaper, private media companies who are they're reporting the news, but they're not doing so great because people are going more online. So if they don't have a digital presence online, then they're not going to have as much reach. People aren't buying actual newspapers anymore. So the newspaper subscription part is decreasing, as well as just the general tone of their reporting. People are starting to sense that they're not reporting the truth and they're distorting the facts. So what does our government do? They go ahead and give them a $600 million slush fund to help them if they're struggling. And this is just crazy because now, of course, it's right before the election. So these media outlets, if they want to get this access to this money, they're going to report whatever the government tells them to and make the government look better and make the opposition parties look worse than what they really are. So there was a parliamentary press gallery dinner in May, and this is an event where the media and some of the government officials get together, and it's just kind of, I don't know what it is, but they just have a night where they poke fun at the media and themselves. So Trudeau spoke at this event, and he joked about criticisms about this $600 million payout. And this is the quote this is what he said at this event. He said, and I'm quoting, "Now, you sometimes hear about liberal bias in the media these days, how they're constantly letting our government off the hook for no good reason. Frankly, I think that's insulting. It's clear they let us off the hook for a very good reason, because we paid them $600 million. You don't get stellar headlines without greasing the wheels a little bit," unquote. So that is what our prime minister, how he feels about the media, that you just grease their wheels a little bit and they'll give you whatever favorable coverage you want, and they will go after your opposition however you want. So this is really troubling in Canada. Now, the reason I mentioned Rebel Media earlier is because they're independent. They're not beholden to the government. They don't have access to this money, and they wouldn't even take it if they did have access to it. There were two events where rebel media reporters went to cover the event as legitimate press. They have they're journalists, they work as journalists, they went to these events as journalists. Now the first one was when the Prime Minister dropped the writ for the election and announced when the election was going to happen. David Menzies, who's the Toronto Rebel Media reporter, went to Ottawa to attend the public notification to be able to report to their viewers that the writ had been dropped and the election was called. Now, when he got there, he was denied access to the press with the other press that was there, and he did a really good video. He was videotaping the exchange the whole time, and the president of the press gallery was the one that was talking to him and would not let him in with all the other press, just saying that he didn't have the proper press credentials and he was not able to get in there. And when pressed for a reason, like a good reason, a valid reason, they just denied it. They just said, nope, you can't come in. And now David Menzies, the reporter, he did go on his own just to see what would happen, because in May they wanted to go cover another event, and they applied for all the appropriate qualifications in order to get in, and they weren't allowed. Even when they had the proper qualifications, they still weren't allowed in this event. So he thought, well, he'd try it without having the proper credentials and see what would happen. And this happened. And this is a travesty, because there were all the other left-wing mainstream media news outlets were there, as well as a communist China newspaper. Why is a communist China newspaper given press credentials for our government announcements, and a legitimate Canadian media outlet is not? The next event that happened was when Prime Minister Trudeau went to Edmonton instead of attending the first debate put on by Maclean's Magazine and City TV in Toronto. He decided to skip this debate and go to Edmonton and hold a rally. Well, Sheila Gunn Reid, who is an Alberta-based reporter from Rebel Media, she went to the event too, and I believe she got the proper credentials to get in. But again, she was denied entry, and they wouldn't give her a reason. Well, actually, they did give her a reason, saying that the government doesn't approve of their message. So this is just showing us that the government is not open to a free press. They're not taking this seriously at all, not giving Canadians the right, our right, in the Charter of Rights that I just read here, the freedom to, and giving the media the freedom to report what's going on with the government and report the news of the day. So I just want you to be aware of what's going on. And if you think that voting for a Conservative Party candidate is going to change this, you are sadly mistaken. Andrew Scheer, 2 years ago, disavowed Rebel Media. It was over some event that happened in the States. Had nothing really to do with Canada. But anyway, he distanced himself from Rebel Media. So, and when they had the Conservative Party of Canada convention in Halifax last year, the Rebel Media was not allowed to attend to report on the event. But they did allow all the other mainstream media outlets, as well as a leftist Muslim group that was allowed to cover the event. So this is outrageous in Canada. There is freedom of the press, and I am going to bat for Rebel Media here, because I don't trust the other news outlets. I read what they say with a big grain of salt, but I will go to Rebel Media when I want the absolute facts. And just so you know, this won't change under Andrew Scheer. Andrew Scheer will not meet with Rebel Media reporters because, you know, whatever, they're racist or whatever he thinks. So Andrew Scheer is just as bad as all the other. He's not standing up for free speech at all. And I'm running against him as a People's Party candidate, and I will stand for free speech. The People's Party of Canada is going to protect freedom of speech and freedom of expression, and I just want you to know that. And when you go to vote, keep that in mind. Okay, so I had to break for a minute there. I had a little interruption, but I'm back now. So anyway, I just wanted to say, before you go to the polls, please really consider what is at stake going forward after October 21st. We have the Liberals, the Conservative Party, the NDP, the Greens, who would all just keep the status quo. They don't want free speech. They just want speech that will help them get further ahead and make them look like they're helping. But it won't be free. We won't be free. Or you can vote for the People's Party of Canada, who we pledge to protect free speech. We are not politically correct. We do not want to have people worrying about what they say, if what they say is going to offend some people, and realize that, hey, if it does offend people, so what? As long as it's not inciting violence or causing somebody to become violent, we should all be allowed to hear and exchange ideas. So I hope you'll consider voting for me if you live in the Regina-Qu'Appelle area on October 21st. I am the People's Party of candidate for Regina-Qu'Appelle. And thank you for watching my video. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any comments or questions. I'll leave my email below and the website where you can get in touch with us and check out our party platform. And yeah, I will see you on the next video. Bye.